like at Utrecht too. Have you been there? Have you seen because they all have
Oh,
these copper roofs, and it's
yeah.
one of the ways that you can tell if you're one of the families thinks they're better than another family. It used to be that the roofs were green because they had much older roofs, but then it became that your roof was orange because it meant you could update your roof more often. Like in a newer
Yeah.
house, you had a newest.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh, good one. Anyway, I put Carnac on here in case people don't know where it is. There's Carnac there
Near Brest.
in Brittany. There you go. That's where I am.
Not too far from Nantes and Jules Verne. It's a good spot to be.
Yeah. So there you have the latitude linked to the Nebra disk. So the solstice angles at the Nebra latitude. So here you see you have the disk, and those golden bands which are on the side give you the angle of the solstice. So this is not my discovery. This was when the disk was discovered. It was given to an astronomer, and he immediately saw that the bands represented the angle of the solstice at the latitude of Nebra. Okay, it's about 41 degrees.
Yeah. I find that also interesting, 41, just because I've been looking at some Alexander Woe videos again, and his whole interest in 41 and John Dee, because John Dee was obsessed with 41, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
It connects with being mastering your existence in reality or something like that. I'll find you the video. It's super esoteric, but basically Shakespeare and De Vere and everything, everyone had to find 41, in order to, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, you'll see that I won't be concentrating on 41, but this is the angle of the solstice, so at Nebra, and so clearly these bands were linked to that. Okay.
Right. And so the solstice is at very least important, like this idea of opening and closing the veils. I mean, these people are celebrating Samhain and all this.
Yeah. But what I show
is that square. Wow.
This has a geometry. It's not a square. It's 7 by 8. If it was a square, it would be 45 degrees. And here it's 41 degrees. It's the diagonal of a 7 by 8 square. Okay. Which is very interesting.
Yes.
Because it uses this kind of modular geometry. So 41.19 degrees is that's the maths, if you want. Now, what I've pointed out here is that if you measure this on the disk, then the top side is 24 centimeters. And this side 21 centimeters, which gives you a 7:8 ratio of measurements of 3 centimeters. Okay, 7 times 3, 21. So in fact, the measurements in centimeters actually represent the numbers in the geometry. Okay, there's a kind of relationship. It could have been 22 centimeters. That wouldn't have been dividable by 7.
Right. But it would be divided.
Right. The fact that it's 21 centimeters and 24 centimeters on a 7 by 8 ratio kind of indicates that the centimeter was used. But we'll come back to this. Okay. If you take the square root of, if you add those together, you get the length of the diameter, 31.89. Okay. And if you use that, I'll come back to the 31.89 a little later, if you like, because it's very important. That's the diameter of the disk. It's given as 32, and I suggest that it's 31.89. I've never had the disk, I've never been able to hold the disk and measure it, and I've never seen very precise measurements of the disk. I've seen fairly approximate measurements of it, but never extremely precise. I don't think it's a perfect circle. I think it's slightly not a perfect circle. Anyway, so
did this over time, or that it started out as not a perfect circle?
Well, I'd have to have the measurements, the exact measurements to say.
Begin. Okay.
Because if it's not an exact circle, then it means something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I put the numbers around the side because all around the disc are holes. Okay. Now, officially, these holes were added later, and they were made to fix the disc to something, and they're not really part of it. And this is where my study differs totally from the official point of view, is that as far as I'm concerned, the holes that go around the disc are virtually the most important part. You can't say they're most important because everything's important, but they are fundamental to understanding what this disc is. And the professor from Berlin University, who was totally against the idea of this being real, excuse me, said that it was obviously a fake because the holes that had been drilled around the side were far too perfect to have been done 3,600 years ago. And so he was using the kind of perfection of these holes to prove it was a fake. But if it's not a fake, then that means that these holes were done with extreme care and precision. And first of all, what we'll see about these holes around the side of the disc is that each band, you see, you have the gold bands, each band has 9 holes. Now, if you go from the top to the bottom, that's the difference between 2 solstices. So it's half the year, summer solstice to winter solstice, 180 days approximately. So 180 days divided by 9 gives you 20-day periods. Okay, so you could say that each separation here on this disc represents a 20-day period. Okay, and you have 9 on either side. Now, hang on, sorry, I've touched my mouse and it went all backwards. It's for some reason. Let's get back to this. There you go. 41 degrees, sorry.
I mean, regardless of whether this is 3,600 years old or not, I'm pretty convinced it is. Whoever did this was pretty great at encoding all of this symbolism, for sure.
Yeah. And the fact that it was 20-day periods, you see, the fact there are 9 holes is because this divides the year.
Oh gosh, right.
Into 9, which
gestation calendar and the Mayan calendar. That's amazing.
Well, and the ancient Celtic calendar divided the year into 40 days. If you take 360 days divided by 9, you get 40 days, which was the ancient calendar, 40 days and 40 nights. And Jesus was in the desert for 40 days. And we still have it today in quarantine, people stay in quarantine.
Days of humiliation for 40 days, right.
And Mary goes back to the temple 40 days after giving birth, which is 40 days after winter solstice, because
it rains for 40 days for Noah's flood.
So these are all references to the ancient calendar, which was based on 9 months of 40 days. Okay.
Interesting.
So that's a very interesting fact.
Yes.
I've just put on here superposed here a megalithic site in Carnac called the Crowhurst rectangle in Plouanel, which shows the solstices here in Carnac.
Right.
Plouanel is just near Carnac, 2 kilometers away from Carnac. So this rectangle of stones, which is a very similar rectangle to Tiwanaku, standing stones on cardinal directions with the solstices as diagonals, is a 3x4. It's a 3-4-5 triangle. So it's 3x4 rectangle. So it can be seen to be 6x8. So Nebra latitude, it's 7x8, and Carnac is 6x8. So I wanted to just point out that subtle difference.
Wow.
I'm just showing here that in Chinese, in the Chinese feng shui science, which I believe is the kind of remainder of ancient megalithic science.
Yeah.
The south was put at the top. Okay, the north was placed at the bottom, the south at the top, the east on the left, and the west at the right, which is not how we represent it today. We turn this around.
That's excellent. I wanted to bring up, I just been afraid you were thinking I was making a joke if I brought up feng shui, but it's honestly, I mean, like, there's a lot to it in terms of not just cleaning your house. I mean, cleaning up your personal body temple. Like, the idea, this symbol could be used to keep cancer from happening. Like, that's I've seen this used just as a token in people's pockets for that purpose.
Oh, really? Yeah. Anyway, the what I wanted to point out is that they put south to the top. So on the Nebra sky disk, where is the top and where is the bottom? You know, is there a top and a bottom to it? It's a circle, so there's no official top and bottom. If it's not a perfect circle, so if it's slightly not a perfect circle, then it can be orientated. If you take an oval shape, then an oval shape can be orientated. You know, you can have the short axis and the north axis, and so you can orientate it. A circle, you don't orientate the circle. So, so let's look at how this is structured, this disc. So I put the south at the top and the north at the bottom, and you can see that at the bottom where I put the north, there is a hole, which is in the middle of the golden arch. Right? I put it here, and it goes up through a gold dot here, and there is no hole opposite. Now, this is quite clear because around the disc there are 39 holes. This is very interesting because it's difficult to put 39 holes around the circle. It's very easy to put 40 holes, you know, but I mean, if you buy a pizza and you invite 39 friends, then cutting it into 39 bits is going to be more difficult than cutting it into 40 because you can't just cut across the middle. All right. So the fact that there are 39 holes around the disc is a very important fact, and nobody had picked up on this until I mentioned it in my book. At the time, on the Wikipedia Nebra Sky Disk site, it said around the disc have been punched 39 or 40 holes. And they hadn't come out on it, you know, because part of the disc on the top left here, you can see.
So they hadn't like looked underneath it or something.
Well, you can. A part of the disc was damaged when the guy dug it out, and
so maybe the hole's missing from the damage, or no? It's
I mean, you only have to see the distance between the holes. You can easily see that how many holes. Was a hole here, there was a hole here, and a hole here, and a hole here. You know, I mean.
So there was 39. There wasn't
39
40.
holes. Well, today on the Wikipedia site, it's 39 holes, right?
Wow.
They say there are 39 holes around this. It's now globally accepted fact that there are 39 holes. But when
100 steps, the 100 steps, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so these 39 holes are very important. And I believe that they are the basis of the understanding of a number system which underlies the whole of the solar system. And that these people understood it, and the Mayans understood it, because the Mayans have a 52 base system, like the 52 weeks in a year. But 39 is 3 times 13, and 52 is 4 times 13. Okay, so 39 to 52 is a 3 to 4 relationship.
Right. And the Mayans love 13 and 20. That's like their main, that's what they do, 0 to 12, everything.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. But if you're talking about a circle, then you're going to be more on a 3 basis than a 4 basis.
Right.
4 is linked to squares. And
3 is easier for fractions. And
yeah, exactly. Whereas circles are linked, the waltz is in 3/4 time. and that turns, right?
Mhm.
You know, Stanley Kubrick's famous thing of the blue Danube as you go into space and everything is turning.
Yep.
That is a perfect example of how the number 3 is linked to circular movement. And
Very well.
if that became so epic, it's just because it's true. People just felt it.
It resonates. Yeah, it resonates.
Yeah, right. But they don't link it necessarily to number 3, and they don't understand necessarily how 3 is celestial, but it is anyway. So let's get back to this. So that's the kind of organization. So once we've traced these sort of dotted lines to cut it into 4, we can then see how the moon disk, if you take the moon disk and you extend the circle, then the corner of the moon disk goes through the center.
Wow.
What part of the moon disk goes through the center? And if you take the inner curve of the lower arch and you extend that, that also goes through the center. Okay? So we can see that these objects weren't placed on this disk just haphazardly. Okay? They were placed very specifically.
With great care.
Yeah. With great care, obviously. I mean, if they've been to Austria to get the copper and etc., you know, a lot of work went into this.
But yeah, and it also says a lot. Because it says so much about everything. It says a lot about the Pleiades in our orbit, or interaction with the different energies.
A lot from this, yeah. So the Pleiades, 7 sisters. So here there are 7 stars. Here you can see the open star cluster, the Pleiades. It's very interesting. A very interesting fact is that a lot of constellations we have seem to be constellations and grouped together, but in fact they're billions of miles apart because they're not the same distance in space, right? From here, 2 stars may look close together, but they're very far apart because one of them is behind the other one by millions, billions of kilometers,
or years. Yeah, I love that too. That's the fun one. Like our star, or like is the sun and the moon the same size just because God wants to deceive you?
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, this is not the case of the Pleiades. The Pleiades is a star cluster. It's a zone where all these stars, they kind of call it a nursery. These stars are being born and they're all close together. So it's a family. They're all close together. So these are really linked. This is not a kind of invention of human. You could go anywhere in the solar system, you would see the Pleiades in the same way. Well, anywhere in the galaxy, you would see the Pleiades in the same way, virtually. I mean, you'd be turning around them, but they're all linked together. They're in the same spot, all right? And so they're very recognizable in the night sky. They're near Aldebaran. They're near the constellation of Taurus, just above them. And a very recognizable star system, which was recognized all over the world. And they're used all over the world. Okay,
as a Dyson Sphere Confederation Type 3 civilization, right?
And the central star, the most well-known, is called Maya. Okay, after the Greek goddess, we call it Maya. So that's where they are in the constellation. You can see them here. This is Taurus, the constellation of Taurus. Okay, there they are. Now, I'm quite convinced that they were actually shown on the Lascaux cave paintings. This is the Taurus in the Lascaux caves. You know the Lascaux cave paintings?
Right.
They're dated to 15,000 BC. I don't actually believe that. I think the Lascaux caves are more recent.
But do you still think they're Neanderthals, or?
Not Neanderthal, because they're not said to be Neanderthal. They're said to be Homo sapiens, but dated to 15,000 BC. But there's a specific thing about the Lascaux caves is that there are a lot of caves in the Dordogne area, and all the other caves, the black is done with charcoal, which can be dated. Okay. Whereas the use of the black in the Lascaux caves is made with manganese, which is a mineral and cannot be dated. And so the actual dating of the Lascaux caves and the cave paintings is just done by comparison of what's around it.
Gotcha.
Okay, but Lascaux caves is nothing like the stuff around it. It's very, very well. We always talk about the Lascaux caves, right? Who knows about the other caves around them? It's really quite astounding that Lascaux is a very, very specific monument. We could do another talk about this. I could go into
this will be great.
Very, very important stuff about Lascaux.
Yeah,
and especially the fact that the first animal when you go into the cave, the first animal painted on your left is a composite animal. It's a unicorn, a composite animal, an imaginary composite animal, like a sphinx. Okay, it shows, it's a signature, which shows that what this cave is about. All right, but I'd have to go back to that on a later date. It's too
fair
much.
enough.
But here, what you can see is that above the torus, you have these seven black dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 6 black dots. 6 black dots. Just above the torus's neck, the bull's neck. All right.
Interesting. This is huge also for like South America. When I was in South America, I was learning from the Bolivian Quechua. Their version of a zodiac astrology, they look at the dark spaces between the stars. That's a major. So that's interesting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Anyway, so perhaps the Pleiades were actually marked in the Lascaux caves. This is at the Vallée des Merveilles in southern France, where on this rock face, it would seem quite clear. This is a representation of that engraving. And you can see the 3 little dots down here. Okay. And this is the Pleiades seen by Hubble with these 3 dots going down here. So the Pleiades, and here we have the Sumerian things. Now, this is very interesting.
They're doing all right. Doing all right.
All these representations. 7 stars, all right. They're represented. There they are. This. Yeah.
And, again, with this symbol next to the sun, that's kind of like the Saturn or something, this U shape, this moon thing.
Yeah, well, again, there'd be a lot to say about the Sumerian symbolism.
Right.
Okay, so you can find it on all kinds of ancient Sumerian representations, but I wanted to show you this one in particular.
Yeah.
Because this one in particular is on a Sumerian tablet. Now look at the shape of that. Look at you have the 6 stars in a circle and this one in the center.
Yeah.
And you can put that right over the Nebra sky disk. You get exactly the same representation on the Sumerian tablet and the Nebra sky disk.
Right. Okay. And start to see Seal of Solomon in different kinds of shapes that can emerge, the lines in between that are drawn.
Yeah, no, of course. But basically, if anybody is doubting that this is the Pleiades, then, they're quite clearly a representation of the Pleiades.
Yeah.
Okay. This is Maya, the mother of Hermes, who is the eldest of the Pleiades. And she was the eldest of 7 beautiful sisters. And she conceived Hermes from Zeus. So, I mean, she's quite some figure in Hermetic knowledge. And the 5th month of the Julian Gregorian calendar was named May in her honor. So the month of May is named after Maya. Now, this is very important because the 1st of May in Celtic calendar is called Beltane. It's 40 days after spring equinox. All right.
Yeah. And begin spring breaks, right? The idea is that we get our spring, or, if you're getting off at Oxford for spring break, it's because Beltane.
Yeah, right. And the word maid, a maid, maiden, and the word mademoiselle in French.
Wow. Yeah.
And maid, Mädchen, all this comes from May, which is because on the 1st of May, then the Queen of May was a young virgin. Now, this is all very interesting because the Pleiades were called the 7 virgins. They were represented as virgins. And the fact that we discover that these are stars that are being born, that they are kind of newly born stars, it's as if the ancients had clearly captured the energy, the pure sort of energy that was coming from these stars. And I thought this may interest. In the Maori language, Matariki is the name given to the Pleiades, and also the season which starts its return to visibility at the end of May, which is the beginning of the new year in the Maori tradition.
A thought I had really quickly, just because we were talking about the Pleiades so much, is because you said, oh, there's 7, and they're like, oh, but here it's 6. And I just wanted to clarify for people in case they're confused. There's 9. But the thing is, in different versions of it, and they start to lose count. And so you see 6 eventually. But in a lot of these earliest versions, there's 9. And in the most recent astronomical observances, there's 9. But they're called the 6 sisters by the Japanese, the 7 sisters in Greek mythology, and the 9 sisters eventually, which is what Benjamin Franklin is in the lodge, the 9 sisters, right? The new, which is the French Freemasonic lodge associated with the Pleiades. So
yeah, and it all depends if you link it just to the naked eye,
right?
Of course, since we had telescopes, then we see things a little differently.
Right. But the Mari, that's amazing. It's the matriarchy, the matriarchy. I see it a lot.
Okay, so this is the image from Stellarium of the heliacal rising of Pleiades on the 1st of May, 1602. So a heliacal rising, I don't know if to explain what that is, but it's basically when the sun hides planets and stars and things for a certain amount of time. When they go behind the sun, we can't see them for a certain time, and then they reappear. And the moment they reappear, in other words, before sunrise, on the horizon, we see them. It's called the heliacal rising. It's the first time you see them again after they've disappeared behind the sun. So if you're watching every morning before sunrise, you won't see them, and then one morning you will see them because they're far enough away from the sun to become visible again. That's called the heliacal rising. And I worked out that in 1602 BC, which is the date at which the Nebra sky disk was supposed to have been been made, the heliacal rising of Pleiades was the 1st of May at the latitude of Nebra. Okay, that's very interesting fact.
That's a pretty what a coincidence, Howard. I don't know what else would you say. Those guys must have been really lucky to have accidentally, those fools were so lucky to just actually realize that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay. Now we're talking about 40 days, and I've done a lot about the 40-day calendar. I've done a series in French, unfortunately, only in French, but a series of six DVDs on the Celtic calendar of 40 days. Yeah.
And so just to confirm, the Gauls use the Celtic, right? They're using the same calendar. The French.
Yeah, it evolved over time. I mean, the further back you go, the different. But they did, yeah. They used the 40-day calendar. It's a vast subject, but anyway, 40 days on either side of equinoxes are very important dates. So we talked about the 1st of May. which is an important date. But we'd also discovered that the 15th of August is approximately 40 days. It's 39 days. We'll come back to this 40 days, but it's 39 days before autumn equinox. And if we look at these dates, sunrises and sunsets every 20 days from solstice, okay, then we get all these different lines coming up, which show the kind of angles of these different dates and show how the holes on the disc can be shown to show different dates around the year, okay?
And then all of a sudden, it's no longer a question of when this thing's from. It's just, hold on, this thing is really useful. I could use this thing to know what's going on in the sky.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done a more modern version. Well, anyway, we'll talk about that later. So basically, we can see that this disk seems to be using a 20-day base calendar, as is used in the Mayan calendar system. Okay, so this was, when I realized this suddenly took on a whole kind of importance, because the word 20 in English is the word score. You know the word score to mean 20.
40, 20, 100,
three score and 10.
All tracks,
yeah. It means 20, and it also means to mark. It's a very old thing because people would mark. Score means to mark because you would mark the calendar, you see. And so the use of the 20-day calendar is because you would make a mark every 20 days. You see, and that's where the word score comes from and has that double meaning of marking and 20. Okay.
Right, and so isn't a stone?
This is north, from the north.
A stone is a score pound, right? So if you're saying you're 9 stone, you're like 190 pounds, I think is that right? Is that right?
Something like that. No.
180
16,
pounds.
Isn't it 16? 16 pounds in a stone.
It's 16. Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
You're more familiar with the royal metric, the royal system.
Well, I used to be. I've been living in France for nearly 40 years. But anyway, just to say that the 20 base system was a very important system in the past, and so the word score shows this. Okay, now
14 pounds. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, all 14 pounds and 16 ounces. 14 pounds.
Sorry.
Yeah. So here we have the angle of the 1st of May on the calendar, and we can see that each hole could be given a date. You see, if you're placing this calendar, if you're looking at it, it could be given a date, and it goes from the 21st of December down to the 21st of June, and then back up. And every 20 days, you move your peg. If you put a peg in the hole, then every 20 days you move your peg. And you're keeping your dates between equinoxes and solstices.
So let's say you find this thing in a cave, and you don't know what day it is because you're a time traveler or something. I don't know. Yeah. Let's just say, but then you could use this to figure out when it is. You can figure out when it is in the year.
Well, you'd have to watch what the sun was doing. But you could use it. Yeah, and keep track of where the sun will be rising, because the whole thing about this is that once you've done the observations and you've got the facts, if you can write them down in some way, then you can use them to predict things, right? So I can say, well, in 3 days, the sun will rise in this angle. Okay, so I can actually predict what's going to be happening. And that then, the object then becomes something which is very, very important because it gives power. Somebody who can predict things obviously has some kind of power.
Yeah.
No? So observation is one thing, and writing down and managing to encode those observations in a usable way is something else.
Yeah, and just being able to bluff. You're like, if I tell you what to do and you don't do it, and there's an equinox or there's an eclipse tomorrow.
Well,
I warned you.
It's just like everything can be used in an evil or in an egotistical or
well, I think it's in another way. Like they should. I think in China, for instance, they expected their government to be able to predict when the weather was going to be bad. You know, they wanted you to know that kind of thing. If you knew that kind of thing, you could tell them that the sun's going to be blacked out today.
Right, exactly.
They'd really appreciate that. They'd probably pay taxes over it.
Yeah, like today, you tell people there's going to be a big storm, so they all get ready for it. Yeah, of course. Anyway, we don't really know if it was used in that way, but it could be. It could be used for prediction. Okay.
Very practical.
Now, what's this drawing showing? I'm showing the geometry here on this one. How the moon geometry here. There's very, very interesting geometry and measurements, and the moon diameter here is 13 centimeters. Now, I suggested earlier that the centimeter may have been a measurement which was used here. Well, 13 centimeters for the diameter of the moon is really quite astounding, and the sun is 10 centimeters.
Sir Real Nil Mill was asking earlier, does the lunar calendar have 13 constellations? And so I keep wondering if encoded in this are some sort of answers about a bunch of things, because there's only so many things that they can show. Yeah. So if you can try to have as much data compiled in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, what I was showing here, you see, is that that's 13 here. Now, if you take the circle, the inner circle of the moon, and you extend it, can you see that? The kind of
absolutely, yeah,
a light green circle that gives you another circle.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and you can see here that the choice of this angle of the moon, because the moon could have been less of a crescent, more of a crescent. Okay, it could have been.
Oh yeah,
right. The actual size of this crescent moon has been really precisely calculated using a 3-4-5 triangle.
Weird.
That is a 3-4-5 triangle, 9.75, 13, and 16.25 centimeters. That is using the diameter of the moon and the link to the inner diameter, which gives you the size of the crescent. Okay. Now, the Sumerians talked a lot about the size of the crescent moons, because the size of the crescent moons can tell you a lot about things in astronomy. And so they wrote a whole treaty about different sizes of the crescent moon.
Right.
Now, this crescent moon here is a quarter. You see, you have a half moon. We know about the full moons and the half moons, right? This is a quarter. It's a quarter moon. The diameter of the moon here, 3.25, is one. The width of the moon, 3.25 centimeters, is 1/4 of 13. 3.25 times 4 is 13. Okay, so it's exactly a quarter moon. Right. Wow. A quarter moon, if you take the 28-day cycle of the moon, it's a week, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of interesting geometry going on here.
Encoded chronology, and telling you also about the sun and the moon lunar calendar. I'm telling you what the lunar calendar is. This is crazy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll keep going because there's a lot to be said. And there's this thing here, right? Now, there's been a lot of questioning in academic circles about what was going on here. Did they move it? Why are there two sort of circles there? Do I zoom in on that? Yeah, I think I do. There you can see it.
Ooh.
That's a zoom on the thing. And it's seen as an error. Basically, lots of things are seen as mistakes if we don't know why it was done. So if I take the bent pyramid in Egypt, where when I go on my tour there, I'll be taking people to bent pyramid. It is still officially said to have been a mistake. They started off at a certain angle and then got up to a certain height, and then they said, "Oh, wait a minute, we're not going to be able to do this right up the top." So they changed it, you know.
And it just sort of worked, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It just sort of worked. Yeah.
Just go back to sleep.
Yeah, that's it. And so this is basically the same. They're saying, well, perhaps it was a mistake and they moved it, etc. I don't think so. I think quite clearly this is on the east-west line. Okay, this is positioned to the east. If you have the south at the north, this is positioned at the east. And I would quite clearly see here that this is the quarter moon diameter, okay, which we see is lit up. I think this is quite clearly a sign. You see this, right? This text is coming very slowly for some obscure reason. So basically, when you have the quarter moon, the moon is 45 degrees from the sun. All right.
Right.
When it's 90 degrees from the sun, it's half moon. And when it's 180 degrees from the sun, it's full moon. And when it's 45 degrees, it's quarter moon. Now, 45 degrees from the sun is the maximal elongation of Venus. Venus will never get further than 46 degrees away from the sun. It's an inner planet, so it turns around the sun. So seen from Earth, it never gets very far away from the sun. All right, its maximum elongation is 45 degrees. And so the fact that they use the quarter moon probably links this whole thing to the planet Venus. Okay, here we have the moon and Venus on the 19th of April, 1988, with an elongation of 46 degrees. Okay, this was a photo taken on the 19th of April, 1988. Okay, so you see the quarter moon and Venus at its maximum elongation.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. So that is a way, if you have Venus, so I've showed all the different.
There they are. Yeah, exactly. This is a big thing in Bosnia, especially. I mean, well, I guess everywhere that Islam is using lunar calendars, we're seeing. But yeah,
and the
everywhere.
famous five-pointed star. Okay.
I mean, what they say about Venus and femininity and how the Catholic Church has converted to Lucifer is just really interesting. This is great.
But obviously, the fact that we have, you know, an orb here, a golden orb, just near the disk. So the moon at this phase can be traced using a 3-4-5 triangle. Well, that's what I explained. There you go. Right. This is changing subject. Sorry. What I wanted to point out here is the fact that you have these two disks on the east-west axis. For me, quite clearly, that could be showing the full moon at equinox. Okay, which has always been a very, very important astronomical event. The fact that one of the things is like behind the other, for me, it's a representation, perhaps, of a partial eclipse or something, but it's happening at the time of equinox. And as you know, the date of Easter is linked to spring equinox. It's the Sunday following the first full moon after the equinox.
And Venus, or Astarte, or Astra, you know, the goddess, again, with this symbol for Venus, for that star.
So basically, there's a lot of information, you know, that linked to the geometry and the stars, showing a deep knowledge of the heavens. Okay.
Wow. This is incredible. This is really useful stuff, actually.
Now, I'd like to come to this what is called the solar boat. In all the official versions of the Nebra Sky Disk, this is called the solar boat. And there was even a whole documentary on RT, which is a kind of cultural European channel, about the solar boat, and the archaeologists going on a long time about the importance of the solar boat in Egypt. To the boat.
Yeah, the Khufu, right? The Khufu ship of the gods.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I didn't really go for this. I think that's possible, okay? But I think there's another possibility, which is this one, which is the north sky. So now I've turned the disc round in the other direction, okay? And I've put the hole at the north, right? My hole, which showed the east-west lines, and I've now put it at the top instead of putting it at the bottom, okay? And so the boat is no longer a boat, but it's a kind of arch. Now, the heavenly vault was represented in the northern sky in Egypt as well. Okay, here you have it. Nut, the Egyptian goddess of the sky, there she is represented as an arch in the north.
See, that's exactly okay, because that's the Khufu I'm talking about. Nuit's my Khufu. That's exactly the whole point. I see it. I see exactly that.
This is different. This is the north sky, whereas the archaeologists were talking about the solar boat. Okay, mm-hmm. I'm just pointing out that the distance, the position here of the points of the two hands on this night sky. Why am I doing this?
This is the meter, their golden meter.
Well, no, watch on the Nebra Sky Disk. So you have an axis given by this, and you can see that the whole thing is slightly off axis.
Oh, okay, interesting. Right? Interesting.
And
okay.
If you do that, then from the tip of the fingers here, okay, you can get the arc of a circle. Okay.
This is so much. That's so much simpler and more brilliant. There, go right for the get the number.
Now, when you come to the Nebra Sky Disk, you see that this disc, this arc of a circle, is done in the same way. Okay, wow. So you can take a central point here, and you see that it's a circle. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have a central point, and the disc goes around this central point.
And that's such a better way to do it, because you can see how I would misinterpret it by trying to ironically string together concepts. But it's like, no, just do the math. Get the angle.
Exactly.
Get the right angle.
Yeah, which nobody really wants to do. But when you do the math, then you suddenly realize something quite incredible, is that this circle, that is a part of a circle, right? We have the golden arch, which is part of a circle. So you have a visible part to the circle and an invisible part to the circle. And as I said earlier, it goes through the center. The inner circle goes through the center of the disc, okay? Goes right through the center of the disc. So you have the invisible part and the visible part. And if you compare the angle, you have an angle in the center of 137.5 degrees and a non-visible angle of 222.5 degrees. And that is the golden ratio.
Wow, there it is. That's too perfect. There you go. For something that's supposed to be just...
So the visible, well, it's gold, right? So the visible part of the disc has a relationship to the invisible part of the disc according to the golden ratio. So the invisible part is 1.618 times bigger than the visible part. Now, anybody can check up on this. You know, I've done all this without ever holding the Nebra Sky Disk in my hands. I've done all this on. I managed to get there've been some incredibly precise photographs made, etc. And I've done a lot of double checking and things. But there you go. If you take the whole circle, so if you take this part with its relationship to the whole of the circle, then it's 2.618, which is golden ratio squared. Okay. So that's a very important part, okay, of the thing. I put here.
Wow.
Well, I could go into.
Yeah, you could build a civilization with this. You know, you can start to model things correct. Again, with this idea of the unreal divine principles. Like this is something housing the divine principles right there.
Yeah.
I mean, so why is, and it's called, I mean, the fact that it's using picture of the sky as a metaphor for the sacred geometry, but also it's something that you can check with the nature of the sky. That's incredible. I mean, this is something that's so real, so connected to our reality and to the divine principles in it.
Well, I'm glad you're picking up on that, because a lot of people don't sort of manage to really connect to the extreme profoundness of this thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This thing is freaking profound. Like this is holographically profound. It's very deep.
Yeah, exactly.
Layer upon layer.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I put a little calculation here, because by doing the geometry, you know, we have 13 centimeters again across here. So the opening of that part of the disc is 13 centimeters. And that gives us a geometry which enables us to calculate this angle. And I've discovered, in fact, that you can determine the golden ratio from these whole numbers. If you have a 13 by 23 ratio, 13 to 23 ratio, take the sinus of that, because this, well, I won't go into all the details, but I'll just give you the result for anybody who's interested to look into it, how you can discover the golden ratio through whole number geometry. So I'd now like to talk about the measurements. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And so if that's also, I was going to say, when you're done with that, is it all right? I'm going to bring on Crypto Alchemist to ask a couple questions before you go. Cool. I'm sorry to keep you for so long, but this is just so great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it takes time to go through things.
Absolutely.
So like I say, the diameter of the disc is 32 centimeters. Oh, that should read 12.5 inches, I think. So the circumference will be 32 by pi centimeters, which would give 100.53 centimeters. Okay, if you take the disc as 32 centimeters, which is the measurement given on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Now, if it is exactly 32 centimeters, then they were using centimeters. No, right? Maybe it's not exactly 32 centimeters. If the diameter is 31.83 centimeters, in other words, 0.17 centimeters less.
And you've speculated or hypothesized that this might actually be correct.
Well, I've done different measurements. You see, like I said, you got 24 centimeters across here, and you have 21 centimeters here. So I've done different measurements around the disc, showing that it indicates that the diameter is more likely to be 31.83. But of course, I haven't had the disc in my hands, and some people, one guy who read my book on Amazon said he's just making this up. He's obviously never held the disc, as if holding the disc would immediately reveal exactly what's in it.
Right. I mean, this is a thought process, and applying a new number if someone finds out there's something slightly different, but the point is the same. Like this is the conclusion we're gonna have to find this way.
So to measure 1 meter, turn the disc once. Now, anybody who's ever done measurement, you know, if you ever want to measure things over long distances, you always use wheels. Okay, you have a wheel, and you measure the number of times the wheel turns to measure any distance. You walk with the wheel, and then you get the measurement of how long you've walked. Okay, that's the best way to do measurements over a long distance. And so The Romans used the wheel as a measurement system. They had a thing called an odometer, which was a kind of cart, and the wheel, when it turned, would turn a cog, and after a certain number of cogs, a stone would fall into and they would do all.
I mean, we even revolutions, I would say, are revolutions per minute or per generations are really.
Okay, and if you want to encode a length, it's much better to encode it on a disk than on a ruler. If you encode it on a ruler of this length, then if in 1,000 years a bit of your ruler has gone missing,
right,
then your measurement length is wrong. If you encode it on a disk, then if part of the disk goes missing, you don't lose the measurement. You only need a small fragment of the curve to be able to reconstruct the measurement. You understand?
Perfect. Yeah. Always work with curves.
The curve, then you only need a bit of it to be able to reconstruct the measurement. So by far the best way to encode a measurement is in a circle, not on a straight line. I mean, it's useful on a straight line if you want to use a ruler to measure things. But if what you want to do is encode a measurement, then on a circle, that's the best way to do it. And that's what they did at Stonehenge. And if you watch my videos on Stonehenge, I'll show how the meter length was encoded on a circle in Stonehenge, exactly the same way. And also at the Rollright stones, and also on different megalithic sites, the meter length is encoded in circles, right? So I've got lots of different examples, it's not just one. So the fact that it was on the Nebra sky disk came as no surprise to me. It's obviously totally unacceptable for most people, but it was no surprise for me. Now, the British inch is 2.54 centimeters. Do you still use the inch in United States? Yeah.
Agenda 21 in California. We're definitely more metric than any other part of the country. But yeah, I mean, the inch exists still.
Yeah, okay. So I think the inch existed also at this time. Do you know why?
Why?
Do you know how many inches are in a meter?
What would it? Not off the top of my head. I can't think of it, but probably like 93 or something like that.
No.
Or what is it? No,
39.
39. Okay, right, yeah.
There are 39 holes around this disc.
Wow. The inch.
And those holes aren't exactly on the edge, right? They're slightly inside. So each hole is separated by 1 inch.
Right? The inch is such a weird measurement, right? Like, what's the inch even about?
Well, I've shown. If you watch the videos I'll be posting about Carnac and the pyramid plan, I'll show you how the British inch is present in Egypt. It's directly linked to the Royal Egyptian cubit.
So, like, it's a divine measurement.
Well, yeah, it's an ancient measurement and a divine measurement. Yeah, but all our measurement systems date from an ancient period,
right?
Because nobody in their right mind would dare invent a measurement system. I mean, anyway, I'm quite convinced that all the measurement systems are ancient things which explain different things and are used in different ways. Okay, so 39 inches is 99.06 centimeters. And that is the circumference of the disc where the holes are. Right?
Perfectly.
So the holes are separated by 1 inch. The sun measures 10 centimeters, as we saw. The moon measures 13 centimeters. The rectangle of the solstice is measured 21 centimeters, 28 centimeters. Okay, so there are lots of elements on this disc showing that the centimeters were used. I think I'm going to go past this. This is about the moon and the major moon. It's a more complicated notion, but it just shows that the extreme positions of the moon, for me, were quite clearly well shown on this disc.
Right. And this corroborates the idea that it's aware of the 19-year cycle, the 18.6.
Not the same thing.
Oh.
No, the 19-year cycle is the Metonic cycle. which is a cycle over which days, years, and the moon cycle link together. But the moon's the 18.6 year cycle is a different cycle, which is not known at all by people today.
Interesting.
Linked to, apart from astronomers, I don't know if they really astrologers. I don't know if they really know about it, but it's the duration of the rotation of the Earth, of the moon's orbital plane. So the moon is inclined with respect to Earth's orbit around the sun. Just let me tell you this: I don't think that the moon is our moon.
Of course, yeah.
It doesn't go around the Earth's equator.
It doesn't fit at all in our reality.
Well, it doesn't go around our equator. All moons go around their planet's equator. Okay, our moon does not go around our equator.
And it's super huge for proportionally everything.
But it goes around the sun, right?
Yeah.
So the Earth and the moon are a kind of complex double system, which together go around the sun. All right, but saying our moon is a moon is not at all the case. Anyway, the moon's orbit is inclined by 36/7 degrees with respect to the ecliptic plane. I'm giving that in a whole number system, 36/7. Do you realize those numbers? That is the exact angle of the inclination of the orbital plane, showing that's a very good example of how whole number systems are behind all cosmic mechanics, right?
Wow. Yeah.
36/7. The Sumerians, obviously knew when they chose their number system, they knew about the basis of cosmic mechanics. Right? And this was given to them by the gods, right? Who must have known about cosmic mechanics. But anyway, this 18.6 year period is the moon's, the moon is on an orbital plane which is inclined by 36/7 degrees, 5.145 approximately. And that orbit, that plane turns over 18.6 years, and so it modifies the position of the moon's rise. And that modification of the position of the moon rise was followed by megalithic alignments. Very obviously, the maximum position of the moon's rise will be in 2025, and I'll be organizing here in Brittany observational events in megalithic sites so people can come and watch how the moon rises exactly in those alignments. This was put in place 7,000 years ago, and you can still use it. But anyway, those extreme positions of the moon are marked by the golden arch here, okay, which the moon's extreme positions go right through the tip of the arch, and then they also go through dots. So, but that's rather more complicated.
Amazing though. So like even things that we've forgotten, this knows it all.
But I definitely wanted to base, why are there 39 holes? This is the big question. Why 39 holes? You don't punch 39 holes around a circle by chance. So first let's place the north at the top, as I've already done. Now I'm going to show you how you place 39 holes around the circle. And you can do it using a 3-4-5 triangle. Would you believe this? This is true, right? So as you can see, I've placed from the center a 3-4-5 triangle with one hole here, and you can see it goes straight through this hole here, right? There's a hole there, it goes straight through that hole. So then we'll turn it again, up, goes through this hole here. Okay, and then we'll turn that triangle again, and it goes through this hole here. And so again, now it doesn't go through this hole here because that's the principle that was used. But at the bottom here, because of the moon and different things they were showing, they put the holes in different positions. But I'll come back to that later. And what I'm doing here is showing you, it works the other way. If you turn the holes in the other direction, then you get the hole here, okay? Now, holes 4 and 24 and 5 and 25 are the only holes exactly opposite each other on the disc, okay? Which shows that the 3, 4, 5 triangle seems to have been used to position them, okay? Why was this an adjustment made for the moon? Okay, so let's go back to the tracing. And we can see here how if you use this 3, 4, 5 triangle, you get 9 segments of 4 spaces, 36 spaces, plus 3 spaces, 39. Okay, so you have 3 spaces left. 1, 2, 3. Okay. But if you keep going like this, you can keep going and going. And you finally, you can use the triple square, which has the half the angle of a 3, 4, 5 triangle. And if you keep turning it, you will discover that 360 divided by 39 is 9.23 degrees. And 9.23 degrees times 2 is the angle of a triple square. So basically, you can trace 39 holes around the disc using a triple square and a 3, 4, 5 triangle, which may not seem important for a lot of people, but when you've watched my videos on the Carnac alignments, then you'll understand why the 3, 4, 5 triangle and the triple square are very important. Now, the planet Mars under 39 holes, so you can get an opposition of Mars. The opposition of Mars is when you have the sun on one side and Mars directly opposite. So basically, how do you see that? It's at midnight, solar midnight. So according to your time zone, you know, your clock might not be exactly right, but at solar midnight, Mars is due south. Okay, so when the sun is due north, Mars is due south at solar midnight. So you get the opposition of Mars. Now the period, what's called the synodic period of Mars, is 780 days. Okay, 780 days is 39 times 20. Okay, so 20 days times 39 gives you 1 Mars cycle. All right. The average time between 2 oppositions, well, I won't go into all the details because it's getting a bit late, but you can see the slides. So I'm
trying to remember that's like also in the Mayan calendar. It's like a
exactly. It's the 20-day calendar. I talked about the score earlier and all that.
Yeah,
so,
the Cantunes. The Cantunes are like 7.
So basically, if you put a pin, I've got my sky disk here. Okay, can you see that? Or right, yeah. So if I put a pin at the top here, and I move it every 20 days. So that's the sun. That's my position for the sun. Okay. So if I take a red pin here, for example, right, and I put it in my sun, this is correct. On the 18th of November, there was a total conjunction of Mars and the sun, 18th of November, which is 10 days ago. So that is the correct position, one could say, for now. But if every 20 days I move my pin, my peg by 1 step, then I can follow the position of Mars relative to the sun. Every 20 days I move my peg, okay? And I know where Mars is, and then when I've done when I've moved it all these times, then I get an opposition. Sorry, I'm not very good at this. I get an opposition of Mars and the sun. Okay, that is 39.5 times 29, 20 days. 20 days. Right?
Wow.
So basically, it's obvious that 39 holes is linked to Mars, right? Mars,
yeah.
had 20-day calendar, and I showed how each hole was 20 days on the side. So this was for 2007, 2005, 2007. So this is quite an old showing, but it shows how in the same way, you know, can you see the red pin going round?
Yeah.
And so it gives you the dates as we go down. It shows you how every 20 days you move your pin, and you see that we're going to come to a Mars conjunction. Boom. Oh, it's gone off the screen.
But it keeps on track.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so, and then you keep going.
That's really impressive. I mean, so we did an episode earlier just talking about all these different kinds of calendars, how hard it is to deal with them, and here's a tool that you can use.
Exactly. So we talked about the 20-day Mayan calendar. Obviously, it's very important. The month was the Winal and the Tekena.
Winal, yeah.
So the sacred Tzolk'in is 260 days. 3 260-day cycles. Tzolk'in equals 780 days, which is the Mars cycle.
The Mars, that's right. That's the deal.
Okay. So we quite clearly see that this is the same.
Those Mayans are so lucky. It's another great coincidence, Howard. I don't know.
Well, I reckon, I reckon they must have had the Maya. Maybe they hid it in Nebra. Yeah.
You don't think maybe it's just an accident, right?
Yeah.
They were drunk.
You can divide the Nebra sky disk into 3 parts, and so you can follow the Tzolk'ins on the Nebra sky disk. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, of course.
Every 20 days, 13 times 20.
I have a general idea like where things are going.
Okay. Now I later discovered that Venus, I discovered very shortly later that Venus, in fact, has a total cycle seen from Earth. It's called the synodic cycle of 584 days. Now that is very close to be able to be divided by 39 as well. 39 times 15 is 585 days. So if you have another peg, which a blue one, if you like, which you move every 15 days, then you can follow Venus as well on the same disk. Okay, so I can take a blue peg. Okay, I can take a blue peg like this one, and this one I move every 15 days. I have to remember when there's 15 days, and so every 15 days you move it, and so you're following the position of Venus with respect to the Sun, and with respect to Mars as well, because if you're moving Mars and you're moving Venus and you've got the Sun, then you can follow the relationship between Mars and Venus. Now I developed that further, and I created this thing.
Whoa.
Which I call an astronomical plateau. And this, incredibly, is based on an object which was found in ancient civilizations. This is my modern version. The object which was found in ancient civilization. Now, hang on, let's see.
That is the best Epiphany calendar I've ever seen, I gotta say. What you're building here. I want to buy one. I gotta get one for my mom.
Hang on, that's 15-day Venus calendar. So this is you can see it moving around. Anyway, I'll keep. Do I go into this later? These are all the details about how to use it. The great Mars, Venus, Sun cycle. There's a lot of things that can be deducted from this. I'm just wondering, Mercury. Now, Mercury, again, the same thing. Mercury has a 116-day synodic cycle, which is 3 times 39, minus 1. So all these cycles seem to be very close to 39. Mars is exactly 20 times 39. Venus is 1 day off, 585 days, and here we're 1 day off on Mercury on a shorter level, so it's less than 1% on a shorter distance. But by advancing a peg every 3 days, Mercury will go around the disk in 117 days. Now, in Greece, Mercury was called Hermes Trismegistus, or Hermes, 3 times great, which is really quite interesting, I thought. And basically, Mercury, Venus, and Mars can all be placed on the disk. And right, I also talked about the human gestation cycle of 273 days or 39 weeks. Now, you may have read about that in Scott Onstott's work. No,
I have for sure, but also just thinking about the Mayan calendar.
I told him about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's super based, man.
Many years ago, I told him about.
Wow. Okay, that ties a lot of things together.
Yeah. He never cited me, never said where it came from, but yeah.
Well, my God, I'm glad I found you now. Then, for the love of God,
because the lunar orbit lasts 27.3 days. Everybody can know that.
But I knew this already, of course, because I was really into the Mayan calendar. I was one of those weird kids that would write it on my hand every day. I was anti-Gregorian growing up.
Okay,
it's a few of us.
So 10 lunar orbits last 273 days or 39 weeks. Okay. Now, few people know that the sun also turns on its axis in 27.3 days. People don't know that. Do you know that?
Yeah.
The sun turns on its axis in 27.3 days, and the moon turns on its axis in 27.3 days.
So it's another interesting point of the 27.8.
Well, and it's also why do the sun and the moon turn in exactly the same time period?
These are questions I ask myself that keep me up at night.
But it all lends weight to the 273 days, which is 39 weeks. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I don't know how deep you want to ponder that, like the idea that the universe and everything is based on those measurements itself, like the fact that
yeah,
right.
That is, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
I show here on the Vézelay. This is the Vézelay in it's a very old church in France, and this is where Saint Bernard preached the Crusades, and this is an incredible representation. I can't go into all the details of this, but you have the zodiac. There are 27. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 27 little medallions. Can you see those medallions here? There are 29 altogether because there are 2 here. But if we take the base, this is done in a very subtle way because, the moon's orbit is 27 1/3 days, but the moon's between 2 full moons, it's 29.5 days. And so they've done this in a very subtle way by adding these 2 medallions under the line. So the line corresponds to the orbit. And what I like to show is, you see, so they have the 12 signs of the zodiac. Can we see one here? Here are the fish, number 3.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, those are the fish. And next to that, you will see the work that it's being done in the fields at the time of the sign of Pisces. Okay, and then here you have Aquarius, who is sprinkling water. Oh no, it's this way. And you have underneath. You have this must be Aquarius here. I can't really see it very well like that. And you have the medallion next to it saying what's going on in the fields, in nature. everybody worked in the fields in these times. So to get people to know the zodiac and when the zodiac signs were, they put these medallions which corresponded to what was happening in the fields.
Yeah, that time of the year, you're going to be working the fields at that time because there's
well, they're working in the fields all year round, but what they were doing different things. So so they're digging here or cutting the grapes. If you go to one point, they're crushing the grapes to make the wine. That's so all the different seasonal activities were put there to help people to memorize when the different zodiac signs occurred.
Totally.
Okay. Now, this fact has been totally misunderstood in modern times.
Yeah, they're like, oh, they have pagan architecture because they didn't know any better. Come on.
Well, and they put it round the other way, saying that, in fact,
that's Saint Sebastian the crab. That's what it is. It's not Cancer.
No, but they put it the other way around, saying that this was to tell people when they should be doing things in the fields.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, so it's a kind of agricultural calendar.
Inversion.
Telling people what they should be doing. You know, when it's in Scorpio, then you make your wine. When it's in such and such, then your sheep give birth.
The
totally
husk,
ridiculous.
The metamorphosis to the husk, the emptying of the soul, and just no like this is what they were doing as a depiction, but now you have to do it, so it loses its love and value.
Yeah, and this is based on the idea that people in cities have to tell everybody what to do, right? Whereas people in cities aren't going to be telling people what they're going to be doing in their fields, right? People who are working on the land know what they have to do and when they have to do it, and you know, they just know it. They don't need people in cities with calendars saying, "Wow, well, we're in Scorpio now, you have to do this." It's the other way round, okay? It's totally the other way round, and so it's very important to realize how sort of modern academia has turned things on their head, and it's become a very popular thing now to say that the Carnac alignments were an agricultural calendar telling people when they should sow. It's totally ridiculous, ridiculous. But a lot of people believe this because that's what's shot out there, you know. But it's not that at all. It's the other way round. It's when you're doing this, well, you're in the sign of Scorpio, okay? But anyway, get back to my point here. My point is that you have the 12 signs of the zodiac with each medallion showing what's being done in the fields. That makes 24. And then they've added another 3 atop here, 25, 26, 27, above the head of Jesus, right? Which is a very interesting thing. There's a kind of opening here in the zodiac.
In the 27 club, yeah.
Okay, there's an opening in the zodiac, like he's opened up samsara, and there's an opening to get out of it, right?
Yeah.
And if you look look, there's a third of a medallion there. There's a little thing in there.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I'm zooming in here. What
Well,
is that?
It's like I'm zooming in for you.
Oh, great. What is that?
It's a stork.
Oh man, like a baby napping stork.
Exactly.
It always comes back to the foundlings. Oh man,
it's a psycho pump. You know, he brings down the souls, and he also accompanies them back up. You know.
Yeah, through the chimney.
And there he is on a third of a medallion, showing 27 and 1/3.
That's the most sinister thing I've seen on a cathedral in a minute. I mean, and I've seen some messed up things in Leon.
Yeah. Interesting, eh?
Yeah. Oh man, quarter moon crescent, like the wow.
Vesely moon calendar. Okay, so anyway, that's the 273 days. So I go into the details of the moon calendar. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. Once I published my book, the first edition of my book had been published on the Nebra Sky Disc. A reader who had bought the book from Amazon, I suppose, sent me an email saying, this could interest you. I've discovered these things. I've discovered this, you know, I never heard of this, called the 58-hole game. And these are kind of tables that have been found all over the Middle East, from Egypt. You can see the different places: Mesopotamia, Syria, Egypt.
Yeah. Now I'm
and
seeing where you were going with that thing you had. Which really freaking me out is I was on a plane and I saw some guy playing one of those like ancient African games with all the little pins, and it looked almost exactly like this. Dude, it
yeah,
reminded me of this.
yeah. And that's what has led people to believe that this is a game. So,
Of course.
and so it is in the museums. At the Louvre Museum, there is one, and it's called the 58-hole game.
Oh man, that's exactly what I saw. I saw someone playing. They're like, "This is the
Yeah.
most ancient game in the world."
Yeah. Now,
What? Why would I see that right before this? This is so weird.
Yeah. Now, what you have to work out here is this is what it's called. So you go to the Louvre Museum and you see this game, the Jeu des 58 trous, the game of 58 holes. And it actually says in the museum, of course, the rules of the game have never been found, so we don't know how it was played. Okay?
Right.
Now,
there's multiple ways people have started to come up with these.
The first thing I'd like to point out here is that there are 59 holes on these boards, not 58.
Huh. Yeah.
So this thing's called the 58-hole game.
Is it 0 and 58?
But you only have to count the holes to realize there are 59 holes. So we're going back to the same thing as the stairs up to Versailles. Right?
100-step
59 holes around this disc. And why do they say 58 holes? Because they don't count the big one.
Yeah, the 0, the goal.
There's a big hole at the top here.
The goal, yeah.
Yeah, and that big hole is the 59th hole. Now, why is this important? Because 59 is 39 plus 20. And in fact, if you look at this, you have 39 holes around the board and 20 holes inside.
Oh, what's 13 times 3 again?
39.
Just making sure that we're still living in that world, because of the whole 13 and 20 with the Mayan calendar thing. It's just so perfect.
So do you realize that before I knew about this, I had suggested that the Nebra sky disk had been used to count 20-day periods and here someone explains that there's a board with 39 holes around the outside and 20 holes inside, which enables you to count day after day. Every day you move your hole one peg, and once you've done the 20 holes in the middle, then you move the Mars peg one peg further, right?
I just have to do a Macaulay Culkin for a second. This is, yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's what got me to develop this thing.
Yeah.
And I realized that it can be used to follow all the planets in the solar system. Okay, using this board, you can follow all the planets in the solar system. And of course, you can follow the moon, because we just saw that between full moons, 2 full moons, is 29 and a half days.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take 2 full moons, how many days is that?
You said it was 29 and a half full days, you said?
And if you take 2 full moons, that's...
So it's 59 days, you're saying?
59.
Yeah.
Like the number of holes on the board. Okay.
Yeah. We're going right back to a full
59.
revolution.
So the number 59 becomes extremely important. It's 2 full moons.
Right.
Now, in all the ancient calendars where they're based on the moon, they always alternate between 29 and 30 days, because 29 and a half days. So 2 months is 59 days.
Yeah.
So all these, basically this board, with all these boards you can see, which are used all over, enable people to follow the movements of the moon, the Venus, Mars, Mercury, and to see exactly how they related to each other, So if I show this thing, this one isn't up to date, but, I do actually have a thing. I have a thing on Facebook where you can actually check up the position of all the different dots, but it's in French. But so you can put these different planets, you have to position them according to their correct place at the beginning. And then you have the pegs in the middle that you move, and then you can move it. So you can follow basically with this board every day by moving your different pegs for Mars and Venus and etc. You can follow the movement of all the system, the planets in the solar system using that board with the numbers 20 and 39 added together make 59.
Wow,
So,
that's incredible.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is incredible.
And then just call it a freaking game. Just go back to sleep, kids. Just stop going to school. It's a game. That's all it is.
Well, it might be. It might have been.
I mean, I'm
used as
sure
a
you
game.
could use it for a lot of things. Like, and of course, if you were studying this, you don't have a computer. This is your computer. You are the computer. This is you're gonna be doing all kinds of stuff with this thing.
Exactly.
But I think saying it's a game is interesting because it's like we're playing with you right now.
Well, it's also, you were saying it's a computer, but what do people do with computers? They play games.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They give them incredibly sophisticated machines that are capable of all kinds of things, and a lot of people play games with them.
Fundamentally, yeah.
So of course, I'm quite certain that people will play games with these things, But I think initially it wasn't a game at all. Initially, it is a very hidden secret. Now, on these ancient things you see that have lines, linking holes here and lines, I don't know what those little lines mean because we don't have the instructions, and there's still stuff to be discovered about all this. But
I'm seeing some Kabbalah references right in that Sephirot, but there's a lot that could go on with this.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's the end of the presentation. So
wow.
Numbers, geometry, astronomy, the disk of net.
Everyone's going to need to look into getting his book, and you're going to probably want to get, even if you just get the French Facebook, you can use Google Translate. We're living in the AI future, so make sure you're looking into more of this because he had to skim through so much of that stuff just to give you like a taste of.
Well, I've got two Facebook pages. One is the first Facebook page I had in French, and then I've got another one which I do especially in English.
Epic.
But people can subscribe to that because for the time I've just created it, so there's not a lot of people on it for the moment.
Let me also, is it all right? I'm going to bring on Crypto Alchemist right now here as well. Hey, what's up, Bernie? How's it going?
Bernie, nice to meet you, Howard. I've been listening in the back. Just absolute brilliant amount of information and deciphering you've been doing with these artifacts and stuff. And I just wanted to briefly show you the Ferrum Foundation's geoglyphs work with the Carnac site and the Carnac stones because it adds into this astro geometry, as you call it, and a bigger just mapping system that they're using with these megaliths and from the sky.
Okay.
Do you want to do a screen share? Put up a thing. I'll present it here. Boom.
So Arthur Ferrum, what he's done is he's calculated that a lot of these megalithic sites, that the specific lengths and angles of the stones, when then plotted out onto the world map, map out to all these other ancient sites. And also, as you've shown, they all have these the cycles with the moon, the sun, the eclipses, the solstices, and the equinoxes, and everything. And that he shows, his work is showing the calculations of what he calls the geoglyph or geoglyphology alignments within them. And it's way too much for me to try to explain right now or cover, but I'll post the link for you. And you if you're at Carnac, that if you visit the site regularly,
I have seen this. In fact, I have seen this. Yeah, I have read this. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just maybe potentially be able to verify or like the different measurements that he uses and stuff, and
well, I did read it. Yeah, very often he uses just 2 stones as an alignment. Of course, if you have 3,000 stones, if you have 3,000 stones in a stone alignment, and you take 2 stones and get an alignment from 2 stones, you can do whatever you want, right?
Exactly, right.
You can do whatever you want. So you should really always have at least 3 stones aligned.
Right, triangulation.
Yeah, triangulation. Yeah.
Well, or just 3 stones in a line. If you have 3 stones in a line, then there's less chance that you're making that up. Because if you have 3,000 stones in lines and you just take 2 stones and say
twice is a coincidence, thrice is more than a coincidence.
Well, twice is your choice.
Yeah.
You choose 1 stone, another stone, and you link them up, and that's your choice. If you have 3 stones aligned.
Seeing like you're covering the main thing that's always kept me too, is it's like we need someone to actually be able to like go out and measure what he claims are like these specific measurements, and then it's like verify that he isn't just like choosing random stuff that works out, but that it's actually there, and like that these different distances are built into these alignments and stuff all over.
Yeah. Well, what I did, I mean, obviously, because I've been living here, you see, for nearly 40 years, so I've been doing all the measurements with using theodolites and lasers and all sorts of things. So I haven't just been using Google Earth. I've checked ever such a lot of stuff physically on the ground, and because you're
saying that you're gonna do some like events with like is it the equinoxes or the solstices?
Solstices,
eclipses maybe as well, because I do alchemy myself, and a lot of the ancient alchemy texts, they value the positions of the different planets, the moons, and the cycles of them with their different processes of it, and that what you're doing is something that I myself really want to get into, and gotta get you back and do a full episode on just the astro geometry aspects that you do.
Do you know the book, the alchemy book? It's called in Latin Mutus Liber. The Mutus Liber. It's a book with no words. It's just pictures. Mutus Liber. Yeah. Ooh. Do you know that book?
I think I've glanced through it, but now that you remind me of its existence, I'm going to have to do an in-depth deciphering of it, because
it has a lot of plates. It has a lot of plates in it which give indications. And there's one, you see, you have the sun and you often have the moon. It's a very, if you're interested in alchemy,
I love ancient comic books about alchemy.
Very interesting.
How I interpret it is when it's the sun, I use a gold, and then when it's the moon, I use silver. Or if Mars, right, then I'm using copper, and I use into electrolysis experiments, and exactly what you're talking about, and that indeed it's encoded advanced science aspects within these images. It's actually mind-blowing stuff.
Hello.
Oh yeah.
I think it cut off a bit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he might have gotten frozen.
Sorry, I muted myself to let.
Yeah, I was just saying that in the Mutus Liber there is one thing where they're getting there's one image where they're getting the dew from the sheets. You know, the idea where you put the sheets out in the fields on a certain day, and that the dew from goes on the seats, and then they ring. Ah, there it is. I can see it. I was there in your previous image.
This one? No.
No. You had a whole load of images came up, and it was down the bottom. Ah, there.
So that collecting
one. Yeah, that one.
The dew, they're not that one. Getting the essence of the plant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Look at that. You see, they're They're
Oh yeah.
they're getting the dew from the sheets. They put the sheets out to get the water from the sheets, right? And that water is impregnated in some way with certain qualities linked to the specific day of the year. Okay.
Yeah, can we see at the top what states the sun and the moon they have them as? So they're full moon.
No, but come down into the middle and look what you can see in the middle. What do you see in the middle?
The bull and the calf.
The bull and
calf.
No, what is it on the left?
Sheep.
A sheep. It's between Aries and Taurus.
Ah, yeah.
Okay. It's the 21st of April, which is the date between Aries and Taurus. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is the orientation of sunrise of the first part of the Carnac alignments. 21st of April. The sun rises in the axis of the first part of the Carnac alignments on the 21st of April.
Wow. I want to get a big color copy of this book. This is great.
Yeah. They're very well, as far as alchemy is concerned, there's no writing in it, but it's an incredibly, everything has been explained through images. Yeah.
The pictures worth 1,000 words, right?
Yeah. But you have to be very, pay attention.
The best form of a comic book. Absolutely. Bernie, did you have any more questions you wanted to ask?
At least like 15 I've written down. So we'll just leave that for the next episode.
Well, if it's all right, Howard, we'll show where they can get more of your content. I'm going to show them your YouTube page again. And if hopefully we can do something again in the future, because this is just incredible. Thank you so much for putting so much energy into this and so much time, because I think it's really, really valuable information. And this is the kind of thing that can change not only our perspective on the past, which is a huge thing, by the way, like just the way we look at the past is so broken. And I agree. And I appreciate that you're trying to show the correct, that these are people that are at least as brilliant and probably more brilliant than us. And we should try to aspire to even understand how brilliant they were. But but the future is benefited by the fact that the more we understand this, the more we can use this. We can start putting pins in the calendar and just see, just by looking at the sky, what's going on and track reality. So,
well said, Xirtus.
But thank you again. And also everyone go to howardcrowhurst.com. Check out his website here.
Yeah, I've just started putting my stuff in English. I've been living here in France for all these years. So all my work was done in French. All my books were published in French. All my talks were done in French. And so most of my work is not available in English. So I'm in the process of redoing it, putting it into English, bringing it out on this new website. So I'd like people to subscribe or so that it will.
Should have been streaming this to your channel. We'll have to do it when we have you back for the next one. And just for a recap, you showed that the Nebra sky disk was an odometer that was both encoded using inches as well as a meter, as well as a super advanced, well, if you have the meter, well, yeah, exactly, the centimeter and the meter within it. And then a super advanced astral calendar that you could track the moon, Venus, Mars, and the sun with, and
basically it shows incredibly simply, because the simpler things are, the closer they are to the source.
So how about this idea? Could the Nebra sky disk be just one disk that would be played in that, was it the Antikythera machine that was found off of
Antikythera machine?
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, can you pronounce it? Like,
Antikythera machine, yeah.
You can see it.
I've done a lot of work on that, which I've never published. All the numbers, because the Antikythera machine does exactly the same thing. It takes whole numbers, because they're all cogs with numbers, a number of cogs, so it's whole numbers.
And they integrate. Could it play within it? I bet you potentially.
And they get all the different cycles of the solar system. So it shows that all the cycles of the solar system can be shown with great precision using whole numbers. And this is the big, I started talking about this, but it's the whole problem with modern science and mathematics is that they're all based on the real number system, what they call real numbers. And real numbers do not exist. Whole numbers exist. Rational numbers exist. But what they call real numbers do not exist. You know, like pi is an irrational number. It doesn't exist.
It's a geometry.
It's exactly, but as a number,
putting it into a
doesn't
fractal,
exist. It exists as a relationship, but not as a number. And modern mathematics and science has tried to fit all these things into one system it calls real numbers, and the whole thing is a lie.
Right.
The whole thing is a lie.
That's How does any junior higher sleep at night when they ask them to like learn math and they find out? Right?
Yeah.
It's worse than Santa Claus, real numbers, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Well,
Norman Wildberger, if you go on my Facebook page, you'll see I've done a clip from Norman Wildberger where he talks about this problem, and it's really, really well said, very well said. He would like to change the whole mathematical system and replace it with Sumerian system.
Yeah,
we need to at least run that.
Oh, there's the article on that's the thing found in Sumeria. You know, this sort of machine that accelerates water. Ancient Sumerians and underwater.
Thank you for bringing that up. I really wanted to get a recap of this. I'm going to shut up and let you explain this. So it's an advanced machine that is also just a giant terraformed building that they found in Sumeria.
Yeah.
That's Sumerian. What country?
And it has all these details in it. You see, like you have the details of that hole. You have a bridge. It's the oldest bridge in the world. This thing here. That's the oldest bridge in the world.
Wow.
But basically, what they say about this is that there's a hole in the middle between the two boards, and that hole is an invention which was made in the 20th century to improve the functioning of the Venturi effect. And so that the archaeologists were just mind-boggled by what they discovered, you know. And when you read the texts, you know, they say, what's going on?
Advanced canal system, essentially.
No, it's not a canal system. It accelerates water, the flow of water. So you have the river coming down, and it goes through the system, and it flows out much faster. And so it flows out faster. So it goes further, and that enabled the river to go all the way to Lagash, where it was drying up before it got there because of the temperatures.
Isn't that like over unity? If they're
it's like a pump. It's like a pump. What
pressure
they call them flumes, a digital reconstruction of the flume. Flumes are what we use as pumps. You put them in a river, and you can pump water with them. Right?
Like the water would have to rise, and it can't rise. So instead, it just pushes to make sure that more water gets through the shorter space. And so it just continues to have that much water going through a smaller space, which then causes it to go faster.
Well, most probably, yeah. That's what's called the Venturi effect. Okay.
Pretty sweet.
Nothing to do with the song by America.
I like that one.
That's a different effect.
Well, Howard, I really appreciate the time you've taken, and thank you for answering some extra questions. And everybody, if you want to, make sure you follow, subscribe. Howard Crowhurst also on Facebook as well as YouTube, and you can find some of these articles and everything else. And yeah, go to his website, howardcrowhurst.com. Look for the books, even if they're in French. You can read them.
They're in. I've got
all
now.
In
yeah, I came to New York in October, and I did a series of talks there. And I presented 5 of my books, which are now in English.
There you go. Sweet.
That's one. Versailles, the other story. Hang on, I've got them here. I can show them.
Sweet.
Howard, can I entertain you one last question about Versailles? How was Versailles so advanced that they had these giant water wheels that like mechanically powered I forget what sort of machine. Maybe it's like an elevator as well as like water up into the palace.
But
Yet
no
didn't have
bathrooms.
toilets. Like I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
there's something doesn't make sense there.
The water system at Versailles represented at least half of the cost of the construction of the palace. It's just an incredible, it was an incredible thing that he did. Water was pumped up from the River Seine. They developed a whole system over a massive area to get all the water, to get the pressure necessary to get his fountains to a certain height, because the pressure wasn't enough, and he wanted the fountains to be higher.
So you're saying that they literally they allocated half of the budget and work into advanced plumbing, yet didn't plumb in toilets.
No, exactly. There were no toilets. Yeah. The reason for it is this. You see those fountains?
Yeah.
They are temporary megaliths. They are temporary megaliths. So they were turned on at certain times to create certain things. This is very advanced science, but it comes from the ancients, and it had been reserved for royalty.
Wow.
That's why royalty remained royalty,
sir.
because they had the knowledge.
To read your books.
Yeah.
I was just showing the book. So there's this book called The Megalithic Plan. This is my kind of major work. This is a very big book. It's 440 pages.
Oh, and there's color photos too.
It's
awesome.
all full color, which makes it expensive, but
more useful. Yeah.
Well, it's not the kind of book you're going to read in 5 minutes and chuck away.
Yeah, exactly.
So it could have been published in the States if I'd accepted it to come out in black and white. And I didn't want to do that because I got a lot of diagrams where the color is important to show what's going on and things. So I decided to put it out on Amazon. So it's this is a hardback version, but you can get it in softback. I think they're doing 25% off on the book.
Oh, sweet.
Well, it's still expensive because Amazon is very, very expensive for color printing.
Yeah.
And there's this book now. This is another subject. This book is called The 52 Mysteries.
Oh, I love the cover.
That's a Calder drawing. Yeah.
Wow.
I was invited to New York by the Calder Foundation in September to present this study.
Wow.
And they had agreed to let me use the Calder drawing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a score. Pretty
and
good.
So what's in this book is probably the most astounding stuff I've ever written. Because I clearly show that the number system, the two most well-known symbol systems on the planet are the same thing. What are the two most well-known symbol systems on the planet? The first one are the numbers 1 to 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's even if in China they all know those number systems, and very often, even if in Chinese, they use those number systems. They're what's called Arabic numerals,
right?
Or Hindu Arabic numerals now.
Because, Sanskrit version,
Yeah, but that's one. And the other most well-known symbol system on the planet is the symbol of the cards.
Right. Tarot.
The clubs, hearts. Everybody in the world, in Africa, China, everywhere, India, everybody plays cards, right?
Absolutely.
And they all use the same pack of cards with the same symbols. Well, what I show in this book, which was mind-boggling. When I discovered this, I nearly went mad. What I discover is that, to show you this.
Oh, man.
The number system.
Yeah, I was.
is linked. So the hearts and spades is is symmetry.
Dang.
And then the 3 is triple symmetry, and the 4 is quadruple symmetry. So the 2 and 5, you turn them once around the vert axis to get the symbol. But 3, you turn it 3 times around the triangular axis, and 4, you turn it 4 times and around, right? And it then works for the following numbers. It also works for 6 and 9, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3, 6, and 9 are linked to the clubs, and then 7 is linked to diamonds, and the 8 is the junction of spades, and it's a bit more difficult, but basically I show how this is alchemic.
Yeah.
Right. This whole system of the numerical system, and the final definition of the numbers, how they were to be drawn, and the shape of the cards, all this comes from 15th century France, from the alchemists of Rouen. Yeah, and it spread all over the world. 15th, 14th century probably, but it started to become known in the 15th century.
Right.
And it's linked to the same system. The 52 card system is linked to the 39, the Maya calendar. And this goes a lot further. But yeah, I won't talk about that now. I think we've been online for about 2.5 hours. Three hours.
Pretty much, this is about the length of the Lord of the Rings, but it's so great. It's about as good as the Lord of the Rings.
What you're describing is so crucial, and I was trying to find a couple other images that add in extra dimensions of what you were just showing and have deciphered, but I had never seen what you just showed and those geometries in with it. And you're showing super advanced sacred geometry, but advanced mathematics and just structure of like the matrix code of what is creation and system. And there's a couple more that we're gonna have to connect to just do
as much as I own all of Scott Onstott's books. Now I have to own all of. I got to own all of Crowhurst books now. I didn't realize there were so many books I didn't own yet that I needed to own. So that's good. First off, that, and then anything I don't have in English, anything that you can get that's like in French, we'll just translate it with the internet. So
I'll be bringing all these new things out on the YouTube channel. There's going to be there's one episode out for Carnac for the time being, but the second one is already made and it's ready to be put online.
Dude.
Yeah.
Très joli. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Yeah.
And we'll see you again.
Some other time.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Au revoir.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians.
Она образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, this skin's beautiful. Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии наномер, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Thank you for watching Xirtus. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Xirtus.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.